She stole my money, set fire to the business we built, and disappeared with a man whose entire identity was a lie. It wasn't a breakup, it was a scam. If someone had told me a few years ago that a coffee shop would wreck my life, I would have laughed, taken another sip, and said, yeah, right? But here I am, divorced, broke, and trying to explain to my dog why we're living in my friend's guest room. All because I trusted the wrong person with the wrong dream. My name's Matt, I'm 41, and I used to live just outside Asheville, North Carolina. Worked in cybersecurity. Quiet job, quiet life. Then I met Rachel, my ex-wife. Loud, outgoing, magnetic. She had this energy like she was born to be on a stage or at the center of a party. Total opposite of me, and maybe that's why it worked for a while. We met at trivia night. I made her laugh with a dumb joke, and somehow I ended up with her number. A few years later, we were married, dreaming up our next big thing, opening a coffee shop. Rachel came up with the name Grounded Theory. Kind of clever, kind of nerdy, totally her. She handled the branding, I handled the building. We found a space, renovated it ourselves, and slowly turned it into something we were proud of. At first, it was great. We had regulars, good vibes, latte art, live music on Fridays. It felt like we were building something real, not just a business, but a life. Rachel started working more from home, saying she needed to stay on top of the books. That made sense. She'd always been the one handling finances. I trusted her completely. Why wouldn't I? But one day, I got a message from one of our vendors. Just a simple, hey, haven't seen payment for last week's order. Everything okay? I stared at that message way longer than I should have. Because deep down, I already knew something was off. The text from the supplier kept blinking on my phone like it was daring me to ignore it. Hey, haven't seen payment for last week's order. Everything okay? It should have been a quick fix. Just ask Rachel, get the details, clear it up. But when I brought it up that night, she barely looked up from her laptop. Oh, that? It's fine, she said, typing away. Just a delay with the transfer. I already took care of it. I wanted to believe her. I did believe her at least for a few more days. But then it happened again. A second supplier emailed, politely checking in. Then another. And then our pastry vendor, the one Rachel had known since we opened, called me directly. She sounded uncomfortable, like she didn't want to be the one to tell me something was wrong. That was when the alarm bells really started ringing. I wasn't trying to snoop. I just needed to know what was going on. So I logged into our QuickBooks account, the one Rachel always handled. It wasn't even password protected. And man, I wish it had been. Late fees. Overdue invoices. Refund requests that had been ignored. Our account was like a graveyard of red flags. And the worst part? Money had been moving. Large amounts. To vendors I didn't recognize. To a payment processor I'd never seen before. And twice, directly into what looked like Rachel's personal account. I sat there at the kitchen table, staring at the screen, my heart in my throat. This wasn't just a mistake. This wasn't, oh, I forgot to hit submit on the payment. This was planned. Covered up. She was funneling cash out of our business. When I confronted her, she didn't even flinch. Seriously, Matt? You're checking up on me now. Rachel, where's the money going? She closed her laptop. Slowly. Deliberately. Like she was resetting the board before the next move. I've been managing the business on my own for months. You're great at building things, but numbers aren't your strength. I had to make executive decisions. That phrase stuck with me, executive decisions. Like we weren't partners anymore. Like I was just some employee who didn't get to ask questions. But what decisions, Rachel? Where did the money go? She sighed like I was exhausting her. I invested it. Marketing, outreach, rebranding. You don't understand how competitive the cafe scene is now. Then why are our bills going unpaid? That's when she got quiet. And silence from Rachel was rare. That's when I knew I wasn't getting the full story. Not even close. I didn't sleep much that night. Kept thinking about our regulars, our staff, our freaking health code inspection coming up. If we didn't have the cash to cover basic costs, what else was about to fall apart? That was the beginning of the shift. The moment I stopped seeing Rachel as my partner and started seeing her as something else. Something I didn't recognize. You ever get that sinking feeling in your chest, like your body already knows the truth but your brain's still trying to catch up? That was me. For days. After our little executive decisions talk, Rachel acted like everything was normal. She made waffles the next morning. Played upbeat jazz in the kitchen like we hadn't just fought over thousands of missing dollars. That was her superpower, she could flip the switch and make you feel like the crazy one. But I couldn't let it go. I started quietly going through old receipts, vendor emails, anything I could find. I even checked the storage closet at the cafe just to see if she'd maybe ordered a truckload of milk frothers or something insane. Nothing. Then, while cleaning up the junk drawer at home, because yes, I stress clean, I found it, a crumpled envelope with a bank logo I didn't recognize. I pulled out the statement inside and immediately felt like I'd been punched in the gut. A checking account. In Rachel's name only. Not ours. Hers. It had nearly $48,000 in it. And guess what? A bunch of the deposits were transfers from our business account. I double-checked the account numbers. Then I checked again. It wasn't a mistake. While I was out front at Grounded Theory running the register, fixing the chairs, chatting with customers, Rachel had been slowly bleeding us dry into a private stash. I sat there for a long time just staring at the numbers. It was surreal. Like watching a movie where the main character realizes their spouse is living a double life, except the main character was me and I was sitting in sweatpants holding a crumpled bank statement with toast crumbs in my lap. I thought about confronting her right then, but something told me not to. Instead, I made copies. Took photos. Emailed myself everything I could find. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but I knew I needed proof. Because whatever story Rachel was about to spin next, I needed to be one step ahead. That night, she got home late. Said she'd been at a branding workshop. Smiled. Kissed me on the cheek. Opened a bottle of wine like we weren't standing on top of a house of lies. And I played along. Sat down, poured a glass, acted like everything was okay. But inside, I was already preparing for war. I honestly thought things couldn't get any worse after finding that secret bank account. But then Bob showed up. It started with a conversation about the future. Rachel said we needed to focus on growth again. She brought up the idea of converting the spare room into a nursery. Said maybe a big life change would help us reconnect. That one hit like a brick because for the past 6 months, she'd barely looked at me like I was her husband, let alone the father of any hypothetical child. Still, I went along with it. Pretended I believed she was trying. That maybe, just maybe, this was her way of turning the corner. And then she introduced me to Bob. "Matt, this is Bob," she said, flashing her usual dazzling smile. "He came highly recommended from the Hendersons. He does custom work, cabinetry, drywall, even lighting." Bob looked like he belonged in a lumberjack calendar. Early 30s, flannel shirt, beard that probably had its own Instagram account. Tan, muscular, with forearms that could crush a grapefruit. He shook my hand and gave me that overconfident, "Don't worry, I got this, bro," nod. Right away, something felt off. Rachel lit up around him. Laughed too hard at his dumb jokes. Kept touching his arm when she talked like she couldn't help herself. It wasn't over the top, not enough to accuse her of anything. But it was there. The kind of subtle flirting that's easy to write off in public until you're the one watching it, feeling like an extra in your own marriage. Bob started coming around more often than necessary. Said he needed to check measurements again. One day I came home early and found them sitting at the kitchen island, drinking iced tea, her legs crossed toward him leaning in like they were swapping secrets. "Just going over paint samples," she said, smiling too brightly. "Bob's got a great eye for color. Didn't know you needed a third party to choose between ocean breeze and cloud mist, but okay." Every time I brought it up, she brushed it off. "Don't be ridiculous," she said once. "He's just friendly. You're being paranoid." Maybe I was. Or maybe I'd been gaslit for so long I didn't know which way was up anymore. Meanwhile, the financial stuff hadn't gone away. Rachel stopped letting me see the books entirely. Said it was causing unnecessary tension. The business still seemed to be running, but there were more red flags, vendors asking questions, payroll running late, and Rachel constantly dodging my attempts to talk about it. And now we were remodeling a nursery? It felt like putting up curtains in a house that was already on fire. But I stayed quiet, hoping it would settle. Hoping I was wrong. Spoiler, I wasn't. It started small, like everything else. Rachel began staying out later. At first, it was once or twice a week. Networking event. Marketing meeting. Art class. That last one caught me off guard. "You're taking art now?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. She shrugged. "It's something for me. Helps me unwind." "Okay, fair. Everyone needs a hobby, right?" I wanted to believe it was harmless. I wanted to believe a lot of things back then. But the nights got longer. And more frequent. Mondays became Tuesdays. Then Thursdays. Then Saturday afternoons with the girls, even though I'd never met these mysterious girls and their names seemed to change every time she mentioned them. She stopped inviting me to anything. She stopped touching me at all. I chalked it up to stress, burnout, maybe even resentment from the fights we'd had about the business. So I gave her space. Tried to play it cool. I poured myself into keeping the shop afloat, putting out tiny fires she left behind, missed orders, confused staff, customer complaints about delayed catering pickups. I didn't snoop, not at first. I'm not that guy. I still believed that if something was really going on, she'd come clean. Or at least give me some kind of sign. Then I found the receipt. It was wedged between the passenger seat and the center console of her car. I was cleaning it out because she'd left the windows down during a thunderstorm and the whole interior smelled like wet laundry. I almost tossed the crumpled paper without looking, but something made me pause. Riverside Steakhouse. 2 entrees. 2 glasses of wine. 1 creme brulee. Date, 3 nights ago. Time, 7:42 p.m. The same night she told me she was at her art class. I just stood there, in the driveway, holding the receipt with both hands like it might catch fire if I let go. My heart was hammering, not because I didn't believe it, but because deep down, I already did. I waited until she got home that night, around 10. Hair curled. Lipstick fresh. She smelled like perfume and cold air. How was class? I asked. She smiled. Therapeutic. We did figure drawing. I held up the receipt. Her smile didn't even flicker. She looked at it, then looked at me. What's this? You tell me, I said, trying to keep my voice even. Was there steak at figure drawing tonight? She stared at me for a long second, like she was calculating how honest she had to be to get out of this. Then she sighed. I went to dinner with a friend. Who? Don't do this, Matt. Who? A friend. It's not what you think. Which, of course, meant it was exactly what I thought. She stormed off before I could say anything else. Slammed the bedroom door behind her. I didn't follow. I just stood there in the kitchen, alone, with the receipt still in my hand. It wasn't proof, not legally. But it was enough for my gut to scream what my heart had been trying not to hear. Something was going on. And if I wanted real answers, I was going to have to start looking for them. I never thought I'd be that guy. You know, the one who hides a camera in his own house. The idea made me sick at first. Creepy. Paranoid. Like I was violating some invisible line between suspicion and obsession. But the thing is, I already knew. I just didn't have proof. And Rachel? She was too good at making me question reality. Every time I caught a lie, she'd twist it. Reframe it. Make it my fault. You're paranoid, Matt. You're too controlling. I can't breathe in this marriage anymore. So I stopped arguing. I stopped accusing. And I started watching. I ordered a basic nanny cam off Amazon. It looked like a charger block, blended right in next to the coffee maker. The perfect spot. Facing the hallway, kitchen, and just enough of the living room. I set it up while Rachel was out getting groceries. It took less than 5 minutes, and when it was done, I just stood there staring at it. This was my last resort. I wasn't hoping to catch anything. I was praying I wouldn't. But I did. It only took 3 days. I was closing up at the shop when the alert popped on my phone. Motion detected. I opened the app and watched the live feed. Rachel walked in the front door. And right behind her, Bob. Builder Bob. Flannel shirt. Perfect hair. Handyman Bob. I stared at the screen, hoping he was just there to measure something. Maybe he left a tool behind. Maybe it was completely innocent. They walked into the kitchen. She poured him a drink. They laughed. She touched his chest. He kissed her. I sat there, frozen, watching my marriage shatter on a 6-inch screen. They didn't even go to the bedroom. They didn't need to. The kitchen counter, my kitchen counter, is where it happened. The same one I'd built from scratch during the renovations. The same one we used to sit at drinking coffee and talking about baby names. I watched the whole thing. I don't know why. Maybe part of me needed to. Maybe I wanted to burn every last bit of doubt out of my system. When the footage ended, I didn't move. I just sat there in the empty cafe, surrounded by chairs stacked on tables and the ghost of what my life used to be. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt empty. There it was. Undeniable. On camera. My wife. The builder. No more guessing. No more asking. No more hoping I was wrong. She cheated. And she brought him into my home to do it. I waited until the next day to say anything. Not because I needed time to cool off, but because I knew if I opened my mouth that night, I'd say something I couldn't take back. And honestly, part of me wanted to give her the chance to come clean on her own. Just one honest sentence. Just one flicker of guilt. It didn't come. Rachel acted like nothing happened. She made coffee. Asked if I needed anything from the store. played her usual Spotify playlist like the soundtrack to a normal morning. Like my entire world hadn't gone up in flames 12 hours earlier. So I did what I had to do. I pulled out my phone, opened the app, hit play. And just like that, the air in the room changed. She froze. Watched herself on screen. Her. Bob. The kiss. The hands. The counter. Everything. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't even look shocked. She just sighed. You were spying on me? That's the first thing she said. Not I'm sorry. Not it's not what it looks like. Not even denial. Just a cold, flat accusation. I installed the camera 3 days ago, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. After you lied about dinner. After I found the bank account. After the vendors started calling me. Her jaw tightened. I can't believe you violated my privacy like that. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so insane I didn't know how else to react. Your privacy? You brought another man into our home. Into our kitchen. And you're mad at me. You were distant, she snapped. You checked out months ago. All you care about is the shop. The bills. The business. The business that you've been draining behind my back? I shot back. The money you've been hiding? The lies? The late nights? That's not distance, Rachel, that's betrayal. She shook her head like I was the one missing the point. You don't understand what it's like, she said. You think because you built some shelves and stood behind a counter you were present. But you haven't been here in a long time. You stopped seeing me. There it was. The pivot. The gaslight. The reversal. Suddenly I was the problem. I had made her cheat. I had forced her to commit financial fraud and sleep with the guy we hired to fix drywall. And the worst part? She believed it. She picked up her purse, calm as ever, and said, I need space. We'll talk when you're ready to have an adult conversation. Then she walked out the door. No apology. No shame. No second glance. Just silence. I stood there for a long time, still holding my phone, listening to the echo of the door closing. And that's when it hit me, this wasn't salvageable. This wasn't just a bump in the road. This was the end. I always thought the worst part of betrayal was the moment you found out. Turns out it's what comes after that really guts you. Rachel didn't come home that night. Or the next. No calls. No texts. No explanation. Just silence and the lingering scent of her perfume on the pillow she used to pretend to sleep on. 3 days later, I came home to find a manila envelope taped to the front door. Inside, a letter from her lawyer. She was filing for legal separation. Effective immediately. And since the house had been signed solely in her name when we closed for loan purposes, she'd said at the time I had 30 days to vacate. That was the moment it hit me. She hadn't just been cheating on me. She'd been planning this. Every piece of it. The late nights. The secret bank account. The financial detachment. Even the way she'd convinced me to let her handle the deed, she'd been setting this up for months, maybe longer. I didn't even pack that night. I just sat in the living room for hours, lights off, wondering how the hell I got here. A week later, I moved out. 1 duffel bag, a couple of boxes, and our dog. Thankfully, she didn't fight me on that. Probably because she never liked him barking at Bob. I crashed at my buddy Nate's place. He had a spare room, but his girlfriend wasn't thrilled about me being there. Can't blame her. Nobody wants divorce drama bleeding into their breakfast nook. The shop? Still running. But weirdly, Rachel had stopped showing up entirely. She left the baristas to handle everything, no explanation, no direction. It was like she'd already moved on, mentally and physically. I still had access to the business systems, at least for the moment. But I could see money still bleeding out, strange payments to consultants, marketing expenses that didn't match up with anything real, and withdrawals labeled as inventory that never arrived. It didn't feel like a business anymore. It felt like a crime scene. And that's when I made the second hardest decision of my life. I hired a lawyer. I handed him the bank statements, the QuickBooks reports, and the footage. I told him everything. I expected a raised eyebrow, maybe even a laugh. But instead, he looked dead serious and said, You've got a case. She's committed marital fraud. And depending on what else we find, maybe worse. It didn't make me feel better. Not really. Because no matter how the legal stuff played out, the fact was I was out of my home, out of my marriage, and barely holding on to the thing we built together. I wasn't even sure what I was fighting for anymore. Justice? Closure? Or just the chance to stop feeling like a fool? The thing about lawyers is, they don't flinch. You can walk into their office with a duffel bag full of receipts, hidden camera footage, and a story that sounds like the plot of a bad Netflix drama, and they'll just nod like you're ordering a sandwich. My guy, Dave, mid-50s, tie always slightly crooked, looked like he lived off gas station coffee, was exactly what I needed. Calm, sharp, the kind of man who doesn't say much until he absolutely has to. We sat down and started going through everything, every invoice Rachel forgot to pay, every withdrawal she'd labeled as marketing, every shady bank transfer. When I got to the hidden account in her name, he raised an eyebrow. When I showed him the footage of her and Bob, he leaned back in his chair and said, "This isn't just divorce. This is civil fraud. Maybe criminal." Turns out, when you use joint marital funds to bankroll personal expenses, secret accounts, or side flings, it's not just scummy. It's illegal, especially when you're both co-owners of the business. Dave filed a lawsuit within the week. Fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and misappropriation of business assets. Fancy legal language for, she screwed you and now she's gonna pay for it. But here's where it gets really wild. While we were digging through financials, Dave had one of his paralegals look into Rachel's business history, just in case this wasn't her first rodeo. Spoiler, it wasn't. Before we ever met, Rachel had partnered with another guy back in Charlotte, opened a boutique design studio together. According to what we found, it tanked less than a year later. He claimed she misused funds, bailed on the lease, and left him holding the bag. There was even a court filing sealed but real. But that's not all. Bob, the handyman? Turns out he's not just bad news, he's practically a walking cautionary tale. Not only does he have a string of failed handyman gigs across the state, but he's also been named multiple times in restraining orders from women whose relationships mysteriously imploded after he showed up to fix a sink or install new cabinets. The man's not a contractor, he's a damn wrecking ball in Carhartt pants. So now, not only am I suing Rachel, but we're also building a fraud case that could potentially involve Bob as a co-conspirator. That's right, Builder Bob might need a lawyer of his own real soon. I should have felt vindicated. I should have felt fired up, ready to take her down. Instead, all I felt was tired. Not just physically, but soul tired. Like the adrenaline was running out and all that was left was this dull ache where my marriage used to be. But at least now I knew I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't being paranoid. She didn't just betray me. She used me, and I was done being her stepping stone. If you've ever been through a legal mess, you know it's a marathon, not a sprint. Paperwork, meetings, waiting, more paperwork. I was spending more time with my lawyer than I ever did with my wife toward the end. But even while I was neck-deep in lawsuits, I couldn't stop checking up on Rachel and Bob. Call it obsession, call it self-preservation, I just needed to know where they went after they ghosted Asheville like two scam artists in a Lifetime movie. Turns out, they were in Florida. Because of course they were. I didn't find that out through some detective agency or credit check. Nah. I found out because someone, a former customer from the shop, slid into my DMs. "Hey Matt, this is random but I swear I just saw Rachel in Tampa. There's this new cafe opening up on Bayshore. Same aesthetic, same vibes. And the guy with her looks just like that builder dude you fired. Thought you should know." I nearly dropped my phone. I did a little digging, okay, a lot of digging. Searched every new cafe opening in that area. Cross-referenced photos, announcements, even Google reviews. And sure enough, I found a place called Harvest and Hearth. Brand new. Clean lines, rustic chic, hanging plants, live acoustic nights. And right there, in one of the soft launch photos, Rachel, smiling like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't torched a marriage, a business, and a bank account. And next to her, Bob, wearing the same smug flannel shirt he probably used to seduce half the Southeast. Here's where it gets good. I posted a quick message, no names, no drama, just a heads up in a private Facebook group for Asheville business owners. Basically, hey, if this couple shows up looking for investment help or vendor deals, maybe do a little research first. Within hours, someone shared my post to a Florida entrepreneur forum. Within a day, I had 3 messages from people in Tampa asking if I could verify that the Rachel in those pictures was the same one from Asheville. Turns out she and Bob were pitching investors with a fake backstory saying they had successful cafe experience and had left North Carolina to expand into bigger markets. The only thing expanding was their lies. One guy, an older gentleman who ran a roasting company, messaged me personally. Said he'd been considering a small investment, but after reading what I shared and doing some digging of his own, he pulled out. And not quietly. He posted a warning on a local small business board, linking public court records, including my lawsuit. Rachel and Bob tried to get ahead of it. They scrubbed their names off everything, shut down their Instagram, even posted some cryptic message about restructuring. But the damage was done. Their cover was blown. And the best part? I didn't even have to lift a finger. People say karma takes its time. Sometimes, sure. But every now and then? She shows up early and with receipts. I never got an apology. Not from Rachel. Not from Bob. And honestly, at some point I stopped expecting one. I think there's a stage after heartbreak and rage where you just get tired. Not bitter. Not broken. Just done. Done trying to understand it. Done chasing explanations that won't fix anything. Done carrying the weight of someone else's mess. The lawsuit finally wrapped 6 months after I filed. My lawyer negotiated a partial settlement. Rachel was forced to repay a chunk of the business funds she funneled into her secret account. It wasn't everything I'd lost, not even close, but it was enough to keep me afloat and cover the debts she left behind. She didn't show up to the final hearing. Sent her lawyer instead. Bob? Never heard from him again. The Tampa Cafe went under before it even officially opened. Word got around fast. Last I heard, he'd skipped town and left Rachel holding the bag again. Poetic, really? As for me, I stayed with Nate for a while longer, helped him remodel his basement in exchange for rent. It gave me something to do with my hands. Something to rebuild that wasn't a relationship. A few months later, I opened a new shop. Smaller. Simpler. Less Instagrammable, but more me. I called it No Regrets Cafe. Yeah, it's a little on the nose. But it works. People come in for the coffee, but they stay for the stories. And I don't mean the ones on the menu, I mean real stories. Regulars bring their drama, their heartbreak, their weird first dates. I listen. I pour. I nod. Sometimes I laugh. Sometimes I just hand them a muffin on the house. The place does well. Steady flow, good vibes. No live music, no string lights. Just honest drinks, honest work, and a no builders allowed policy that gets a good laugh out of anyone who knows the full story. The dog's good, by the way. Still hates fans. Still curls up next to me every night like he's making sure I'm not going anywhere. I don't know if I believe everything happens for a reason. That sounds like something people say to make the pain feel worth it. But I do believe in rebuilding. In starting over, not because you planned it, but because you had to. And if you're sitting in the middle of your own disaster right now, wondering how the hell to start again, you start small. One breath. One day. One cup of coffee at a time.